Oh yeah, tell you something. It's time for painfully honest tech. Yo, what's up? What's up? Somebody's starting right away. Talk about aliens. Your show blows balls. That's so. That's a funny one. Woo! Media Fox. God damn it. Anyway, hey, how's everybody doing this evening? My name is Jason, sometimes known as the JTL. This is Painfully Honest Tech live, and tonight we're going to talk about the the wiles of Apple, be they feminine or otherwise. The wiles of Apple. How do they do it? How do they make us love them when they are so hateable? I don't understand. I don't understand. Before I get into it, before I get deeply into it, I'm going to say hello to Genosis out there. It's good to see you here at the beginning of the show, Genosis. Ace, same for you. Good to see you at the beginning of the show. Alan from Ireland is here, and that's good to see him. We got the Captain Aw. Am I supposed to say the Captain Aw, or am I supposed to say the Captain Aw? I'm not sure. We got Khalil in the house. We got, of course, our friend Media Fox Bennett is here. Jeremy, Shy Army. Yeah, so everybody's here. Good morning, Vietnam. Alejandro is here. Alejandro is here. Yes, so triggered, bro. I am so triggered, bro. I mean, honestly, it's like I can't even. Ow. I hurt my back last week and it's still totally messed up. It's like a muscle thing, not a bone thing. It's in my rhomboids. It hurts like hell. Like if I talk too loud, it hurts. If I cough, it hurts. Saw this video, told me to like roll up and down on a wall with a tennis ball and like massage it out. Don't have a tennis ball, but I found a baseball. I tried that. That didn't work. So, it hurts bad, man. And I looked it up. It's from doing this. It's from this. And you know the sad thing is it makes you do this. So Michael Pepper is in the house. Jason has become a 16-year-old high school girl all of a sudden. All of a sudden, no, man, I live in a house with a 17-year-old high school girl. And so I am so familiar with the drama of it all. I mean, I can't even believe Media Fox was already throwing out trash before the show even started, man. Like, oh my God. Gag me with a spoon. That's from back in the old days. As is Good Morning Vietnam. Good Morning Vietnam. Now, most of you, some of you maybe not, but most of you might know that from The Office. But it was from a movie called Good Morning Vietnam, which starred Robin Williams. But did you know that the character Robin Williams played, who was a radio DJ in Vietnam for, what is it, the Army radio station? I can't remember what it's called. The Radio Army. That character was based on Pat Sajak of Wheel of Fortune fame. True. Oh my God, that's like totally tubular, man. Gag me with a spoon. Woohoo! So massage it out with balls. That's right. I've got to massage it out with balls. It's the only way it can be done. Oh, it's Tuesday. It feels like Friday. It feels like a week from today. Maybe it's the back ouchiness. Maybe it's other things. I don't know. I don't want to forget before we get more than a few minutes into the show to thank the sponsor of these live streams, our good friends over at Restream, which reminds me that we can now get some of that background music going on. Last week we had Chill, and it was pretty cool. So, oh yeah. All right, we'll turn this down. It'll just be there in the background to smooth us out. It's like the smooth jazz. Don't be bogus. Bogus. I mean, I don't even know how to be bogus, man. I am so for real. I can't even be bogus. I did open the iMac. Gall darn it. I posted a really useful 1-minute YouTube short on how to turn it on. I said how to set up an iMac, in parentheses, blue. And it's just really like you turn it on, you put in some passwords, and yeah, it's anyway, back to Restream. Genosis is right. Since moving to Restream, can any of the regular viewers, Armed Forces Network, thank you, Des. Thank you, Des. Armed Forces Network, Des gets a gold star for remembering what my old brain would not remember. So, since moving over to Restream in February, can anybody who regularly attends these live streams remember a time when I've had any sort of like, technical difficulties where I couldn't get on, or, like back in the old days, Zach used to be like really mad because things would happen, and doesn't happen anymore. Restream is the place. Restream is the place. There is a link in the description that you can go to. And man, they've been sponsoring the show now for 3 months. But if people don't sign up, they ain't gonna sponsor no more, and then I'm gonna be broke. In fact, tomorrow, one of the Restream people are going to be on the channel with me, talking about Restream and all the cool things that Restream does, and answering anybody's questions, anything that you want to know about Restream. If you are interested in the live streaming, which I think you should be, because live streaming is like the parachute pants of the early 2020s. That's what I say. Like, oh my God, if you're not live streaming, then oh my God, gag me with a spoon. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, Restream. Restream.io/PHT gets you in there for free, and if you sign up for a paid plan, you get $10 off. $10 off. 10 American dollars, not that Canadian BS. 10 American dollars off. Anyway, oh my God, man, I miss MTV. I miss music that I would want to see on MTV. I miss it all. I've been going through a jag recently of watching. Have you guys ever watched Pomplamoose? Jack Conte and his wife had this band. Jack Conte is the guy who started Patreon, and they have this band. They do cool covers, and it's kind of fun. And then Jack Conte also has a band called Scary Pockets, where they do funk covers of like popular songs, which is also kind of fun. But they sound so good. They sound so, it's so well recorded, so well performed. The arrangements are very cool. So I've been going through that. And just this evening, as always, this morning's coffee in the Painfully Honest mug, available down there below the description for your coffee drinking pleasure. It holds all kinds of coffee, not just old coffee that tastes like ass. So, but I gotta get something going. I have to like keep myself moving because, I'm trying not to move anything but my head because everything else hurts. So Cody asks, making a new DAC or hi-fi headphone. Do you mean like, am I making a video, or am I making, what? I've got more videos coming up. I want to get a hold of this THX DAC that, the folks at Razer, for some reason, Razer has everything to do with it. Want to get a hold of that. So yeah, I want to get a hold of that. I got a lot more stuff coming. And yes, I know that Ace remembers the dark times of the technical difficulties. I won't speak ill of the company that I was using when those dark times occurred, because they were a fine company as well. But Restream is solid. Technol is here. God, I haven't seen you for a while, man. Where you been? Is Apple making a new headphone? Man, I don't know. I think that anybody who's waiting for Apple to do anything like anybody, like the rest of the world, is waiting in vain. That's part of what I want to talk about today. It's part of what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the fact that it became even more obvious to me as I opened up the iMac that you can there are two worlds. There's the real world, and then there's Apple world, right? And Apple world is a beautiful, wonderful place where everything is shiny and bright and everything looks great, blah 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 blah, all that stuff. Everything matches, and everything is so pretty. But unfortunately, in Apple world, you have to do it the way that they want you to do it. So if Apple says you can have lossless audio on their music streaming service, you can have it, but you just can't have it on any of the stuff that they make. Okay. Instead, you can have it in spatial audio. And I figured out exactly what spatial audio is. Oh. Look who's in the house here. Mr. Viper, the man about tech. The man about tech, the captain of Team Apple. I want to know, does the captain of Team Apple have an iMac yet? Or no, you're doing the MacBook thing. You got the MacBook thing going on. Viper, if you want to, that link that I sent you last week is still good for this week. That's another thing about Restream. The links are always good. The links are always good for everyone. We got Brett in the house. We got Viper throwing fireballs. Michael says, I saw the title is now allowing you to store tracks offline on the Apple Watch. Nothing better than paying money for higher quality music and then throwing it on the Apple Watch. Yeah. Well, Michael, nobody said that, audiophiles had to be smart. Nobody said that audiophiles had to know how the technology works in order to pay money for it. Well, it's good to see Viper's, he's doing Viper things tonight. But no, man, it's good to see you. Yeah, I don't know. I turned on the iMac and then it's just so weird. Yeah, I've been seeing about this Apple Bloomgate with the 12.9-inch iPad. Well, yeah, it's weird, okay? Because I have a micro LED TV over here from TCL, and I have not noticed any blooming problems from that TV. Have not noticed any blooming problems from that TV. So it is very weird. And I did see, I believe it was All Dad Tech had some. He was ranting on Twitter as much as you can rant in 280 characters about it. And I saw the pictures, and yeah, it doesn't look good. But that's probably something, and that's probably something that can be tuned up in hardware, in a firmware or a software update, right? So. I don't know. I'm not giving him a pass. But I mean, you buy a Pixel, the screen sucks. Everybody's like, oh, it's not that bad. You buy an iPad, the screen sucks. Oh my God! The world is ending. So that is the Apple blessing and curse. And yeah, I mean, the thing is, part of it is that's this whole marketing thing. Like can you escape Apple marketing? That is the question. That is the question that we all have. And the answer, is, it depends. Oh, but first I want to highlight Genosis's new Mac Mini Pro looks sweet. If the Mac Mini Pro looks like that, I mean, that is a silly looking thing. That mock-up thing is just silly looking. When has Apple made a product that looks anything like that? Rounded edges and all that stuff? No. Oh my God. The whole thing is out of control. The whole thing is out of control. Mac Mini Pro is going to be space gray and look just like a Mac Mini. Man. Well, okay, so Alejandro says you can't compare the cost of an Apple product with the cost of a Pixel, but agreed tech companies should be accountable for their own product failures. Well, here's the thing about the Pixel. This was what, the Pixel 2? The 2 XL, I believe, was specifically the one that had the problems, right? And that was not a cheap phone. That was not a cheap phone. I think it was like $800, $850. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at what the original retail price was. I mean, it was certainly much cheaper after time. But yeah, there's it's just, I don't know, people. I found myself having this. God, well, so last week, what was it? Friday, the iMac or iPads come out. And I look at the iPads and then I'm like, oh my God, they're available at like the Apple Store and at Best Buy. And I was almost ready to drive 2.5 hours each way to get a 12.9-inch iPad Pro. And then I found one at the Best Buy in Cedar Rapids, which is like 45 minutes away. So I bought it. And then 20 minutes later, I was like, what the freaking hell am I doing? Why am I buying this thing? I have an iPad right now. I use it to watch YouTube and HBO Max, and then I read books on it, and I don't need a $1,400 like Pornhub machine. Do you really? I don't need it. So I canceled my order, and I was gonna cancel the order for the iMac. But it wasn't supposed to ship until tomorrow. So today I was gonna cancel the order, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's on the UPS truck in my town on the way to my place, and it was just disturbing, highly disturbing. So I don't know. So Cody says, yes, you can escape if you aren't a fan of the product, iMac, MacBook Pro, Mac Mini, iPod Touch. Well, this is a good point. This is a good point. The thing is, though, like, even though I have decided that for the moment, Apple does not fit my technological needs. I still find myself, with the FOMO aspect of it, like, oh man, that looks so cool, I gotta have it. And I gotta hand it to him. Like, the experience of opening the iMac today, it was like an origami pizza box. It was amazing. It was, you had to lay it down and then you open it up like a pizza box and then everything unfolds like origami. It was an origami pizza box that had this thing that weighed like 4 pounds in it. Unbelievable. And then I got it out, and they overwrap this. It's almost like your grandmother. When your grandmother wraps your Christmas present, she tapes like every possible edge with the gift wrapping, right? So it's like your grandmother, but with all of this like translucent cellophane, or what is it? Whatever it is. Plastic. Feels like it should have a nicer name than plastic. But it's got all this stuff on it, and then they have, like, now they have this big sticker on the front that says hello, and it peels off, and it's like that sexual peel. Baby, I got to have some peeling. It's just like sexual peel. When I get that feeling, I got sexual peeling. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, right? You know what I'm saying about it. It's like I had to put it back on and do it again. It was that good. Unfortunately, it had fallen on the floor and had some dirt on it. But still, it was sexual peeling. That's what it was. Um, I don't even know what the hell I'm doing right now. Yugo's in the house. That's good. JPS is in the house, all the way from Japan. Um, Man, don't talk to me about apple pies, especially after I mentioned Pornhub already in the show. It's if I mention Pornhub this early in the show, then it's already off the rails. And then I'm singing Marvin Gaye. I'm singing Marvin Gaye about an iMac. Now tell me, people, is that right? And this music, maybe it's this music, this chill music is just, it's like, I feel a little sexual. Why don't other manufacturers? This is a question. Jonathan's got this question. Why don't other manufacturers do things to make you feel like they earned your money? I'm assuming you mean your money. Well, here's the thing. I mean, people complain about Apple and the prices and all this other stuff. Apple provides like a soup to nuts. Now, everything sounds dirty to me right now. A soup to nuts experience with their thing. You know, um, it starts at the ordering process. It goes over into the stores. It happens with the box. It's just like, how many times do you take something out of a box and want to put it back in so you can take it back out again because it's that cool, it's that satisfying. So Apple has always been really, really good at this, and they have made it a point. Okay, and the thing that Apple does really well that makes people really fanatic about their products is the fact that they provide that kind of experience. There's nothing more boring than like just like like taking something out of a box and it's all like you know brown cardboard and yeah. Some companies, I mean, companies are trying. Like Razer does a pretty good job of boxing up their laptops, but still, it still feels like you're getting a PC out of a box. Um, so at the end of the day, I just think that that's part of the reason why Apple earns your money, right? Now, we can argue all day long about whether or not Apple is worth your money, but it's not just it's the marketing and it's not the marketing. The marketing is part of the special sauce, right? The special sauce is that like that unique experience that somehow they're able to achieve over and over and over again, right? And I don't necessarily know exactly what it is. Um, it's consistent, but they consistently, bring something new to the table, like something as simple as this, like plastic hello sticker on the front of the thing, on the front of the iMac, right? It seemed when I looked at it kind of superfluous, but when I took it off, I was like, ah, that's nice. That's nice, ladies and gentlemen. That's nice. Um, so let's see here. Oh man, Orbit's got something. My buddy got the new iMac and his dog ran by the cord that the thing went flying and cracked the screen. Should have bolted it down. Well, it is not. It is not a heavy. It is not a heavy machine. I will give you that. Like, I think I'm gonna like when I make a video of it, I'm gonna take a thumbnail picture with me holding it in like my non-dominant left hand. That it is like a giant iPad on a stick. It is unbelievably light, unbelievably thin. And again, see, this is another thing that Apple does. People make fun of them with like, "Oh, look, the headphone jack's on the side. Why did they do that?" But when they're able to make something as thin as they did with this machine, and give you the kind of quality screen that you get, as well as the power and the speed and the blah blah blah, all that stuff. I mean, it's just something very unique. Nobody can do it. If somebody else could do it, then they would be challenging Apple for supremacy, but they can. Nobody can. Nobody can. But the problem for me is, like, I'm going to go back to this. And we'll talk about this for a second, and then maybe branch off into taking some questions. We'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. My whole thing is I realized this today. Like, the iMac was on the way to my house, right? And I was tracking it. And with each passing moment, I was getting more and more bummed out. Because on one hand, I love to get new stuff, of course. On the other hand, I knew that this iMac was going to show up and I was going to want to use it all the time, or I was going to want to fool around with it, or I was going to want to whatever. But I've got, I don't know if you guys have seen my new setup. I'm going to do a full video on the setup, but tearing this thing apart and sticking a Mac in it would be hard. I was thinking about trying to run it off an iPad. And then I was like, that's stupid. That would be stupid. And more than ever now, I think the point that I want to make is, more than ever now, my friend TechRant, you guys know TechRant, put out a pretty good video today about how Apple over the course of the past year or so has become the master of FOMO, in that they are putting out more and more products now, or at least they're spreading their products out. And releasing them more often. It used to be that you'd get an Apple event that released something in the spring, and then an Apple event that released some stuff in the fall, and that was it. And you'd have WWDC in between, and that would be all of it. These days, it's like they're just holding on to everything and releasing, as just little bits and bobs here, and they announce things like, when the new MacBook comes out or whatever, it's going to be really because of the chip shortage and blah, 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 it's going to be, so basically everybody is pre-ordering everything, right? Apple they used to do this with the iPhone, and I was never sure if it was because the iPhone they couldn't actually make enough iPhones to get them to all the people that wanted iPhones at first, or if they just created false scarcity to drum up, more demand, which is what they're doing with a lot of their products. And I feel bad and TechRant pointed this out too, I feel bad for all the schmoes who ordered the iPad Pros, right? And as soon as you started ordering an iPad Pro, on the day that the orders went up, you were getting pushed back to June, and now it's July and everything else. And then on iPad Pro release day, you just have to go to the Apple Store and get yourself an iPad Pro. And if you pre-ordered, you're still waiting for another 6 weeks. So Apple's able to create this magical thing somehow, and they just keep driving up. They just keep driving up the FOMO. And I've always fallen prey to it. I mean, it was even worse when I was younger and I couldn't afford Apple stuff. I would just look at the iPods and be like, man, I wish I could afford that, but I couldn't. And now it's just everything they release, everybody's got to have it. And I got to mention the leakers. And the whole culture that has sprung up around leaks, and Apple leaks specifically, and certain people specifically. It's gone from being hey, we're telling you about Apple stuff early, and they don't want us to being a part of Apple's marketing plan. If you make 100 videos all saying, here you go, this is the latest thing about Apple, and everybody who watches your videos is going to be like, oh my God, I can't wait for that thing. It doesn't matter if the thing exists or not. But if you do that, right, then you are now a marketing arm of Apple. And I mean, far be it for me to tell anybody, what to do with their lives, but I don't know. To me, the whole leaking thing is just empty content. It's after a certain point, you don't have to be right. It doesn't matter if you're wrong. If you're close, you're good, whatever. Nobody really cares. In between Apple launches, everybody just wants to talk about Apple. And honestly, there's nothing else in the tech world right now that has that kind of cachet, that has that kind of draw to it that makes everybody want to talk about it, right? So when you're talking about Apple stuff, you're just basically it's like, have you guys watched the movie Seven? You guys seen that movie, or at least are you familiar with the 7 deadly sins? This one of the 7 deadly sins is gluttony, right? And gluttony, of course, in the movie Seven, was depicted. This guy was strapped down to a chair and fed until he just exploded internally, right? Because he was a heavy set guy, right? And that was a murder that signified the sin of gluttony. And right now, YouTube is a lot like gluttony. People can't get enough of the Apple stuff, and so they just on and on and on, more Apple stuff. And if you look at people's titles, and if you look at the way their thumbnails are, people have recognized, learned what that Pavlovian button is that they need to press in their title and their thumbnail in order to get somebody to click, which is, I guess, the point of YouTube, I guess. But at the same time, I don't know, man. Not everybody who does it is producing empty content. But a lot of people are just a lot of people are just hitting that Pavlovian button. Shelly is here. Shelly, good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. It's a drive-by Shelly sighting. And yeah. Frank says he pays very little attention to the leaks. You can't pre-order a leak. No, you can't. No, you can't. But if you're a teenager and you're not going to be able to afford to buy the thing anyway, you might as well get as excited about the leaks as you do about the products, because, if your viewing demographic is part of, is 18 to 25-year-olds, and 18 to 25-year-olds ain't going to be able to buy the thing. They're just going to salivate over the stuff, whether it exists or not. Right? Thank you, Shelly. I did you guys notice that I totally rebranded the channel visually? Total visual rebrand. Got to thank my my friend over there at, well, I'll link him. I don't want to he's got a very specific name for his company, and I don't want to mispronounce it or mislead anybody about what it is. So, yeah, this whole Apple leaks, there's nothing worse if you're trying to be a content creator, right? If you're trying to be a content creator and you want to have a long career, there's nothing worse than hitching your wagon to something as flighty and unstable as leaks about companies' products. Because once you do that, once you hitch your cart to the leak train, then what happens if the leaks dry up? What happens if people stop caring? What happens if your sources get fired? What happens if you get caught making up most of the stuff that you say? How would anybody ever prove it? I don't know. But here's the thing that would really suck. You get stuck being a leaker, and the phrase Apple leaker becomes an adjectival phrase describing you. Then you will never be anything but Apple leaker blankety blank, whatever your name is. And I would never want to be that. Why would anyone want to be that? Because, what happens if you don't want to be Apple leaker blankety blank anymore? What if you want to be an actual person with valuable things to say? that doesn't, have to be about Apple. That's going to be a tough pivot. I'll tell you what. But again, it is the state of the game at the moment. It's the state of the game at the moment. People want Apple stuff, and there are plenty of people lining up to deliver the Apple stuff, which in turn is an arm of the Apple marketing machine. You know, it doesn't matter if the product exists. If you're talking about it and it makes everybody want it, then whatever comes into reality at the end of the day is going to be the thing that people buy, regardless of anything. So being an Apple leaker, being a smartphone leaker, being a tech leaker, being anything it's tantamount to being a garbage man, right? Because as a leaker, people only care about your stuff until it's no longer useful and it gets tossed to the side, and then there's just more garbage the next day. So you show up with more garbage, and then it gets tossed into the landfill. And who wants to be that? Who wants to be that? Hugo says, I always wondered how many of those Apple rumors or leaks are deliberate. Well, I always wondered how many of those rumors or leaks are made up by the person who's throwing them out there. We'll never know, right? I mean, it doesn't make any difference. Regardless of if all of your information is coming straight from Tim Cook or not, at some point, it's going to be wrong. And I mean, Apple did do the thing a couple of months ago where they leaked some stuff deliberately to catch a dude and, and fire them. So, this could end really badly for people who why, if you worked at Apple, why would you want to leak things? I mean, Apple is I assume a cherry choice job, right? The pinnacle of your technological aspirations would have to be like Apple, Google, something like that, right? So if you're there, why bother leaking stuff out? There's no money in it. So why do it? That's the question I could never answer. I mean, the guy who got caught before was trying to barter favorable media coverage for his startup company, and that was why he wanted to do what. That's why he was leaking the stuff. But I mean, if there's no upside for you and a ton of downside, I assume if you get caught leaking and you're an Apple employee, you're not getting a letter of recommendation. and once that happens, and then if you're on the other end, if you're on the delivery end, I don't know. It's like you're stuck doing that. Apropos of nothing, Jay says MKBHD kind of is successful. Yeah, kind of. I don't know what that's in reference to. How many leaks are deliberately wrong from Apple? I mean, I don't know. See, the thing is, Apple doesn't have to care about this because they know that no matter what anybody on YouTube or The Verge or whoever says about whatever might happen with their product, they won't be able to make that. They won't be able to make enough of whatever product it is to fill demand anyway. and so it doesn't matter if the stuff is leaked. It doesn't matter who says anything about it. As soon as the pre-orders go up, they'll sell out, and boom, that's it. So Frank says, John Prosser has done well as a leaker, but he was already very popular YouTube personality first. Yes, he was. Front Page Tech was very successful, and John is a friend of the show, a friend of the channel, a friend of mine. But John is no longer John Prosser of Front Page Tech. John is now Apple leaker John Prosser. And it's a long life. I mean, I've spoken with him, about these topics at large. And I just want, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I had to make a choice about my own content. And in making a choice about my own content, having to think really hard about what kind of content that I wanted to make and whether or not I care. I care about the game. I decided I just didn't want to, like, play that game anymore. It's exhausting. It's unfulfilling. It's useless. Nobody cares. You're not adding anything to society by, airing potentially dirty laundry. I mean, yeah, John was leaking Google stuff when he was still John Prosser of Front Page Tech. That's where the whole thing, I think, sort of started to get legs. But it just doesn't seem like a really good career move. So, I mean, it is what it is. We all make choices. And honestly, I have chosen, a lot of people might be like, "Oh, sour grapes, John's gotten so much bigger than Jason's channel is." Well, I mean, if I had to make the content that John's making in order to get there, then I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't want to do it. And I fought with that for the better part of the last year. Like, what do I do? What do I do in order to, get from this sort of like plateaued place where my channel is and move forward? And it was either like, play this Apple game, play this, chase the latest info, be first, be sensational, be blah, 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 be whatever. I would be miserable. I would hate my life. I would hate my life. And I decided that I didn't want to hate my life. Like, having a couple 100,000 YouTube subscribers and that kind of stuff is, I mean, what I worked really hard to get there, but I don't like whatever the next thing is that takes me to the next part of my YouTube career. I can't have it be something that I can't stand to do. And so, Genosis says, yeah, John could quit leaking and be doing FPT only, and I wouldn't miss the leaks as much as if John quit FPT. I got to be honest, I haven't watched Front Page Tech for a bit. I mean, I watch it intermittently. But is it really Front Page Tech anymore? I mean, I don't know. You guys would have to answer for me. Or is it John Prosser, Apple leaker person, on Front Page Tech? I don't know. I sound like I'm being really negative, and that's not my intention. Everybody who does this kind of gig has to make choices. And so when you make those choices, like, sometimes you make the choices and you don't realize what the outcome is going to be. Like when my channel got, a lot of momentum behind it, a lot of that was from sort of drama related stuff that was a lot of fun to do at the time, but I had no concept of whether or not I, what it would be like to have to do that over and over and over, on and on and on. Right. Once I got about a year into doing that, and I was exhausted and I hated my life and I hated my content, and it was clear that other people who were, watching the channel felt the same way, then I had to make a choice. Everybody makes a choice. Yeah, Frank says I watch him less now than I did when the leaks were happening. Well, I mean, but a lot of people are watching him more. So Justin Nugget says, I guess every YouTuber wants to be ahead of the tech, and leaks is that. As soon as a product drops, the rush to get videos out is insane. Well, yes and no. I mean, there's the rush to be first, but, that game used to be easier to play as well, especially when you're talking about Apple stuff. Because Apple didn't used to give out pre-release embargoed stuff, right? Apple, if you were Marques Brownlee and Apple was releasing a new iPhone, you had to go to the store and get it. As far as I know, because nobody had any reviews of the iPhone before the day that the iPhone came out. And so it was first impressions, it was unboxings, it was blah, blah, blah. It was after 24 hours, it was after 72 hours, after 7 days, after blah, blah, blah. But at least that was an even playing field for channels big and small. A lot of, my channel grew off the back of the fact that I covered the hell out of the iPhone 8, the iPhone 10, the iPhone, 10s, 10s Max, 11, 10s Max. The iPhone 10s is, I made a video about that the night before, the night that pre-orders were going to go live. And that video went for 1 million views over the course of the weekend. And that was a big jump forward for the channel. But that was also golden handcuffs, in that the people who found the channel through that video, and that video was not everything that I create. It was not like the crux of my content, right? It was a rude awakening to the new people when I did the things that I usually do. And so it really had a deleterious effect on the Painfully Honest Tech channel, in the sense that there were expectations that came with having a 1 million view video, that then didn't, you didn't fulfill the expectations of that video. Like, there were people who, that was a negative Apple video. And yes, at the time I was not happy about Apple, right? So I made a video about it. But I go back and forth. Sometimes Apple does things that I like, sometimes they don't. And so I talk about it. But when it comes to being first, it used to be possible to be among the first, even if you weren't among the chosen ones. Now you pretty much have to be among the chosen ones to be first. So at this point, like, if I put out a iMac video tomorrow, I'm a week and a half late. And there's nothing that I could do about it. I ordered it. It showed up whenever it showed up. But to be honest, like, I didn't like run to the computer and pre-order the iMac immediately so I could have it as soon as I could possibly have it. Because here's what I realized about YouTube content, or at least the YouTube content that I want to create. You can make a video about a computer. You can benchmark it. You can talk about how it looks. You can talk about all this different stuff. You can compare it to the old ones. You can compare it to other computers. You can do all of that stuff. And a lot of channels do. And I've done it myself. But at the end of the day, once the person that's watching that video watches that video or a series of videos, they have no reason to come back and watch your channel anymore at all until the next Apple thing comes out. And, you give them that dopamine rush of talking about like how cool it is. There's no value in that content beyond like the dopamine hit that you give to people when you open a box and they don't have it to open for themselves, right? But what if, for me, if I get that new computer and I talk about, how does it work doing this with it or that with it, or how can I teach you something about using it that would help you do a thing that you want to do? To me, that's a more valuable piece of content, because at the end of the day, people will be interested in that. Like, I could have filmed the unboxing of this this iMac, and it was really cool. I mean, I don't know how Apple made an origami pizza box for a computer, but they did, and it was awesome. But that's like, I don't know, man. It's like talking about the Kardashians, right? There's nothing of substance in leaking stuff about Apple. There's nothing of substance in any of it. There's nothing of substance in making a video that just says, look how cool this is, and I made pretty B-roll pictures and stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, am I off base here? Is there more value to be had? Is there more value to be had in making something that people might actually be able to take away a piece of value than just making something to talk about something that's pretty? I don't know. Michael says, I've noticed my Apple content gets no interaction, but Android and Windows stuff does. That's telling about the people who enjoy the different brands of products. I mean, my experience has been the opposite, though, Michael, which is really interesting. I generate a pretty decent amount of conversation around my Apple related stuff. Windows and if I make like the Samsung Knights mad or something like that, then there's conversation. But if I were to make a video talking about how I'm still using the Galaxy S21 Ultra after, I don't know, how many days has it been? How many months? Almost 6 months at this point. That's not a video that many people care about, because after the first month, does anybody really care about the Galaxy S21 Ultra? I don't know. Do they? There's another Android phone that's coming out, so why care about that one? Apple's different. Apple keeps people on their toes, keeps them interested, and so to me, like, I have to make I have to make stuff that I feel like it's valuable to put the effort into. And again, I'm not saying that I know better or I am better or any of this other whatever stuff, right? I'm just saying that this is something that I had to figure out for myself in terms of, like, am I going to make superfluous content that's like basically has the nutritional value of popcorn? Am I going to do that and build my YouTube career off of that, or am I going to do something else? I mean, I don't want to be a popcorn vendor. I don't want to make confection. And I just feel like a lot of times, people get caught up in confection. And it's harder to like to sort of like carry a narrative thread through. X Plumber says, every year at Note season, I was all over PHT. Well, yeah, I mean, I love the Note, man. But see, that's another thing about where tech is right now, is there's no Note this year. And how many phones have we not seen that would normally have come out? How many? It just seems like, especially in the smartphone market, the discussion has shrunk quite significantly, right? So yeah, I mean, the fact that there's no Note this year, like, what content am I going to make in August? Because August was always Note time. It's Note time, baby. So I got to figure out something else. And a lot of people are filling that with Apple. David March says, Apple releases a lot of stuff, and much of it is very good stuff. You discuss this a lot. You need to decide the direction you want to take, and then you need to take it. It's your call. You're right, David. And I'm, I am endeavoring toward that. I wish it was easy, right? Because the choice that I'm making with my content now is the choice that's gonna, it's gonna have a huge impact on my my creative self. It's going to have a huge impact on my bottom line in terms of my business. It's going to have a huge impact on a lot of different things. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing something that, even if it doesn't go well, I won't be miserable doing it. Right. And, over the past like couple of weeks, the audio thing has come back around, and I can't tell you how satisfying it's been for me to have people watch, like, the video that I put out about, like, here are the things that you could consider buying if you wanted to actually be able to hear Apple lossless audio, right? People really seem to appreciate that video. A lot of comments of people saying, "Thank you for doing this. It's clear. I didn't understand it. Now I understand a little bit more. I appreciate it," etc., etc., etc. That, to me, I mean, is a hell of a lot better than just having people hate on you because you don't like the thing that they like, right? So the audio thing is coming back around. I've talked a lot about, maybe starting another channel called Painfully Honest Audio, where I could dig into microphones and live streaming related stuff and recording related stuff and all that. But I'm thinking that I might just follow this audio thing for a while longer and see where it goes, because that's, in terms of tech, that's where my heart really started with tech, was with that stuff. I just like everybody, I gravitated towards smartphones because they were the it tech of the time. And they were, I wanted to talk about them, and I was interested in talking about them. And so I went out and I got 9 lines on my phone plan and got every phone that I could get and covered the phones. But now, like I just said, it seems like the smartphone industry is constricting. There's not as much growth. There's not as much innovation. And so what's next? David says, "I'll watch and get your point. You love audio. You should keep doing that." I appreciate that, man. Yeah. And, I want it to be fun. I want it to be educational. I want it to be challenging. I want to challenge people to, like, think about the things that they're doing, because part of the reason why people are being caught with their pants down right now about this Apple lossless audio thing. Part of the reason people are being caught with their pants down is because they weren't aware of the shortcomings of what they were buying, right? They weren't educated consumers. And they didn't have to be at the time, but a few months later, when lossless audio becomes a thing, then people are like, what's this mean? What is this? And so if I can in some way, like, educate people beyond what they're being sold, then that will be a really satisfying part of content creation for me. And as we've been talking about this whole time, Apple is really good at selling. But a lot of times people don't understand the shortcomings of going with Apple. And as I said right at the very beginning, there are 2 worlds. There's the world of Apple, where everything is done Apple's way, and you get to do what Apple says you get to do, and you get to do it the way they say you get to do it, or you don't get to do it. If you want to use AirPods of any kind, and you want to listen to Apple lossless audio, Apple doesn't make a product for that. So they give you spatial audio. And the other day, Sunday, I got my Sunday. Okay. Monster truck fans, I don't know, used to always see those commercials. Anyway, I got out my Sony WXM4s, or XM4, WH1000 XM4s. Yes, those. I got those out, and I figured I would listen to them and like hang out and stuff like that. And I tested out the 3D audio, right? And honestly, like 3D audio and spatial audio, well, there might be some technical differences between the two, right? They're really the same thing. And from my time with working with gaming headsets and learning about how they did spatial audio for gaming headsets, I know some of the tricks that they're using, right? Part of what they're doing with spatial audio is they're just using like a stereo spreader, which, I mean, is used very often in a lot of the music that you listen to make it sound wider, to make it sound fatter, to make it sound like it has more depth. In the mastering process or somewhere in the mixing process before it gets to mastering, they will put like a stereo widener on it, right? And so when they're doing this spatial audio, they're using the same concept. They're using digital signal processing to kind of enhance the sense of space, right? But it's not real and it's not special. It's cool, but it's not anything special. I mean, if you want spatial audio, go on a Windows machine, go into the sound settings and click spatial audio. But Windows, Microsoft doesn't try and sell you spatial audio, but it's right there in the sound settings. They also have Windows Sonic, and you can get Dolby Atmos. I mean, all this stuff is available on a Windows machine for cheap or free. And and Apple, like, this is part of their shtick. They do something that's already being done in a lot of different ways, and then they say it's special and it's new and it's going to blow everybody away. And it is true, just like we were talking about on the show last week. If somebody listened to spatial audio and then they listen to lossless audio or vice versa, spatial audio will be the thing that people are like, ooh, that's cool. Because it is very obvious. And it is kind of cool. But it is not real, right? And it is not something that was intended by the artist who created the music. And to me, that's where like the bar stops. If it isn't what the artist intended to be heard, then it is not real and therefore not valuable, right? As Hugo says, it's fake sound staging. It's taking software and making it sound wider and fatter, and it's just like if you go into a room that has a really great sound system, and you watch Dunkirk or you watch Blade Runner, whatever it is that you watch that has a great like surround sound soundtrack, then yeah, it's really impressive. And where that analogy falls down is that a lot of films are actually recorded, mixed, and mastered for that format. But all music is recorded, mixed, and mastered for stereo listening. And anything that happens after that is not what the artist intended. And to me, if you're starting to screw with the audio, the artist's intentions, then yeah, it's just not real. I mean, a lot of people are, I've had this argument with people for years about effect and EQ. I never, ever engage in EQ on any device that I'm using. Never, ever. And well, maybe sometimes if what I'm listening to the source through is a subpar device and can't create the sound that I know is supposed to be there, then I might tweak. In the car, I tweak a little bit, maybe 2 dB of treble, 2 dB of bass, and maybe if there's a mid, I'll like tweak that up a little bit, but never more than 1 or 2 dB of anything, right? And so at the end of the day, like, EQ is the same thing as what this spatial audio thing is. It used to be, remember, maybe you don't remember, but back in the day, in the time of like stereo separates, where you'd get an amp and you'd get a CD player, and then you'd have a graphic equalizer that would have like 1,500 little sliders on it, right? People use that and they would tweak every tiny little frequency, and maybe you would get it to sound. I don't know. The only way that I would ever use it or condone using it is if there is a deficiency in the equipment that needs to be made up for by these extraneous tweaks, right? And so I don't believe in EQ. I don't believe in spatial audio. Dolby and 5.1 and Atmos and all that kind of stuff is an entirely different thing. And it has nothing to do with, like, Dolby Atmos music is stupid. Because the only way that you can get Dolby Atmos music is by taking the stereo signal and splitting it up and using software to make it sound different than what it was supposed to sound like. And so, as Hugo says here, Turtle Beach has been, doing this with a PCI sound card, Creative, Sound Blaster, all of these companies back in the 90s. This was a huge thing in gaming. How do I get a bigger, more wide and exciting sound out of my gaming experience, right? How do I do that? It's all being done by using software to enhance what's naturally there, right? X Plumber says, it's like changing your audio receiver to Hall or Stadium. My receivers have done that for decades. It's not good or new. It is, man. So I just, whenever I hear that on a AV receiver or something, I just feel sorry for the people who had to like work to make that happen. And I feel even more sorry for the people who are like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm going to listen to like all my TV with this like fake reverb on it. It's just awful. All of my AV receivers are set to one of two, like always set to one or two things, either direct, which means it's passing as quickly through all of the circuitry as possible without going through any of those processors, or something that automatically detects the signal source and what it's coded in. So if it's stereo, it recognizes that it's stereo. If it's 5.1, it recognizes 5.1. If it's Dolby Atmos, etc., etc. One of those two things. I will never use any sort of artificial thing. I want the signal source to determine the way that it's being put out to me. And so Apple, with this whole hogwash about spatial audio, is just they're duping the consumers into thinking that they're getting something special when they're not. So SM Robinson says you should see the marketing on the Sync Cell Alpha speaker. It's about adaptable sound field. They never mention that the DSP they use has nothing to do with the mix. That would confuse the consumer. Apple has said the same thing. Sonos has that same kind of software in some of their speakers. It can enhance the listening experience. If you have a crappy room and it's not treated for anything, and the only place that you had to put your home pod is in the corner, then it can enhance, like DSP can like save the listening experience to a certain extent. But if you tried to tell an average consumer, a regular person, that in order to achieve that, the company is taking the signal that's coming in and then altering it and making it into something different from what it really is, and it has nothing to do with how the music was intended to sound, people would be really confused. And I guess at the end of the day, no end user who's just a casual end user, the majority of people, 90 something percent of everybody who buys any of this stuff, they only care about how does it sound at the end of the day, right? And so for me, I see this whole Apple lossless audio versus spatial audio and Dolby Atmos and blah, blah, blah. I see this as like an educational opportunity. We all know that nobody cares about anything technical until Apple does it. And then when Apple does it, everybody has to figure it out, right? So when Apple lossless audio happens and people find out they can't listen to it, they're going to want to know why, and they're going to want to know how. And so if I can make content that helps people understand why and how to have the experience if they want to have it, then that's, to me, a valuable service to provide to people who come to my channel. And so I mean, I guess like this is like the teacher part of me, right? Where it doesn't seem like enough to just say, look how cool this is. Like it's important to me to have to say, this is how they're doing it. This is why they're doing it. This is what it does for you. And this is how it is, this is what it is, and this is what it's not, right? Alejandro says, how about changing cables or ear tips for silicone foam hybrid for earbuds? Cables is arguable. I mean, I think that Podcastage has a really good video on high quality cables versus low quality cables when it comes to microphones and audio. So if you haven't, you can go and watch his video. It does a good job of explaining, like, for me, to sum it up, like if you have a microphone cable and it's like, this was a $40, it's a 10-foot cable, 6-foot cable. And I think I paid like $40 or $50 for it when I bought it, but I bought it 20 years ago. So to me, that's the big deal about cables. This is a cable that's lasted me for 20 years. I have other cables that cost like, 25% of what this one is that have come and gone many, many times over in that time, right? So in terms of cables, I think it's arguable. Now, there are audiophiles out there who are spending like $10,000 per speaker cable, and they've got like little braces that they use to keep it off the floor so there's no like interference and all this other stuff. To me, that's like wine tasting. If your palate is sensitive enough to appreciate that, then good for you. But I don't know. I hate wine. So the thing that I love about music is it can provide exactly the experience that it's intended to provide through a crappy radio speaker in the center of the dashboard of a pickup truck that's half blown out. It can create that experience there, or it can create that experience in a $50,000 setup. And in doing that, like, nothing changes with the music. Nothing changes with the music. The music is creating the emotion that it's intended to create. The experience is different, but you still respond to the music. My good friend Mark Spencer is here and says, I think you mean cork sniffing. And that is exactly what I mean. That is, yeah, exactly. A lot of cork sniffing going on. And I guess I can't really blame people. Everybody's got to have a hobby, right? I mean, it's better than smoking crack. but yeah. It's at the end of the day where I get really frustrated. Like an audiophile who's buying all this stuff to enhance their music listening experience. It's they know what they're doing. They know what they're getting into. They're not being sold a bill of goods. But a lot of times with Apple is selling you a bill of goods. They're, as I think I saw Genosis say earlier, yes, it's up here. Genosis says Apple is offering an illusion of the real thing at a fraction of what it really is. For most people, that is enough. Yes. For most people, that is plenty. And I can't look. It's not their. Well, I don't want to say it's not their fault. If they're enjoying it, good. But for Apple to sell that bill of goods and to like say, oh yeah, and by the way, we're giving you access to Apple lossless audio, but none of our products support playing it back. That to me seems bizarre, and that's kind of the Apple way. In the rest of the world, you can buy any number of things from any number of companies to create the experience that you want. Like, you become educated enough to do it, and then you learn what pieces you want to have, and then you go out and you buy them and put them all together, and you create an experience. Apple is an out-of-the-box, like, just, here's your iMac in its origami pizza box. Set it up on your desk, put in your password, and away you go, right? And for the majority of people, that's plenty. But once we start talking about lossless audio and spatial audio and Dolby Atmos audio and all that kind of stuff, like if somebody was mixing audio, like if somebody went into the studio and said, let's make this record in Dolby Atmos, right? And they recorded everything, for 3-dimensional Dolby Atmos type sound, and they mixed it that way, and then it came out and could be decoded by your your AV receiver as Dolby Atmos, then man, that would probably be cool as hell, right? That would be incredible. But nobody does that. Nobody does that. Well, except for people who score for film. But it's always surprising to me how many people actually like listen to film soundtracks, but that's another thing. Okay, so Damelin77 has an interesting question. Is it true lossless music? What hertz does it run on? Okay, so pretty much, you could probably get higher, but the standard for digital lossless audio at this point is 24-bit or 32 floating point and 192 kilohertz, right? So 24-bit 192K is, like lossless. What people don't tell you is that I would guess that at least 75%, and if Mark Spencer's still listening, maybe he could chime in and give me his thoughts on this. 75% of everybody who's recording these days is still recording at 24-bit 48 kilohertz, as far as I know. So it's coming out of the studio at 48K and then, being upscaled to 192, unless it's something very, very special. And, you spend a lot of money on it, and classical music is what can really benefit the most from this, because what you get when you go lossless is all of the information that is actually like inaudible to the human ear. The way these compression algorithms work is they sort of take the top and the bottom of the signal, and they just chop that off and squish it down. And so you can't hear the air, right? But the air is made up of a bunch of frequencies that are still there. The stuff is resonating through it, and mics are picking it up, et cetera, et cetera. But when you have a compressed file, a lot of that is lost. So, lossless audio gives you that space back. And your ability to hear it is predicated on a couple of different things. Your ability to hear it is predicated, A, on whether or not your ears have been, you've trained your ears to know what to listen for and then be able to hear it and pick it out, but also that you have equipment that is of a high enough quality to be able to do that. And a lot of times that one of those two things is not actually there. Stability and Chaos says they are mixing for spatial audio. I don't know who they is, but as far as I know, I don't know any studios that are set up for spatial audio, because spatial audio is not a standard that can be like, recommended and reproduced from one place to the next. It's just something that Apple says. Apple says spatial audio. They haven't released like the codec, or they haven't released, what you should set your equipment to in order to be able to record spatial audio. So, yeah, maybe not. As far as I know, spatial audio is just a marketing thing for a thing that Apple does to audio inside their headphones or inside of their speakers or whatever. It's just digital signal processing. Tech for Now says, if you want to experience digital audio, you need to get a dedicated hardware. We should be glad that Apple is releasing digital audio formatted content at the streaming source. We should. I totally agree with you. I mean, the fact that Apple is giving us lossless audio for no additional cost is awesome. And I think that this could be the beginning of a renaissance of real appreciation for quality audio signal. For the past 20 years, the standard for listening to music, the standard format that we have, has been a lossy, compromised signal, right? So MP3s are not the full fat. Skim milk music is what it is. And 320 kilobits per second MP3s are oftentimes nearly indistinguishable from a lossless file. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't distinguish the difference if you had it there to do so. So the fact that it exists is fantastic, and what I hope is that it spurs a new sort of interest in being educated about what quality audio signal really is and how to appreciate it and listen to it and enjoy it. So, Stability and Chaos says, Apple claims they're working with artists and producers for this, only a couple of thousand tracks in spatial audio at launch. You know what? I mean, based on my knowledge of the industry, unless spatial audio is a standard by which they could go back into the studio and remix for spatial audio, which to my knowledge it is not, then what they are doing is licensing with Apple and giving them the permission to slap the spatial audio logo on it. And Apple is providing the digital signal processing to make that happen. It's in many ways like high-res audio. Okay, high-res audio is a standard that you have to get to, and there are actually standard numbers that you have to achieve to be high-res audio. But people are not in the studio mixing high-res audio. So a lot of this is probably licensing and the allowing the artists are allowing Apple to put that logo on their work. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if we don't hear at some point some artists say, I don't want that BS on my stuff. I'm not going to let them do it. So thanks, but no thanks. Tech for Now says, we all know trying to achieve Dolby Atmos without the dedicated hardware is nowhere near half the experience. I hated it when Dolby allowed phone companies to market a tiny speaker that can do digital or Dolby Atmos. Yes. I bitched about this when I think Samsung was the first company that paid Dolby to be able to use the Dolby Atmos logo. Again, it is digital signal processing. They are running the audio through a little algorithm that makes it sound more spacious. But the only way to achieve Dolby Atmos is to have the requisite number of speakers pointed in the requisite directions in order to make that happen. That's the only way. So we have to, and it's kind of the same thing with spatial audio. So if you guys don't know my friend Mark Spencer, he is an amazing guitar player, has played with many people. He runs his own studio, and I've worked with him for a bunch of years. And he says, I first started recognizing artificial sound field widening and digital processing in rental cars. There are still a few that featured radio systems that not only employ it, but can be overridden. But this is kind of extra. I've never had a comment this long. The kind of more that people want a faux representation of quality that makes them feel good. The whole idea of actual high fidelity and what that doesn't mean has been more or less bred out of the human animal, but with a surplus of extra dough and maybe time on their hands. It's a whole new generation of cork sniffers who want a kind of audio bling, but it's not a cork. It's not even a twist top. It's a wine box. Well said. I think you're right. And like I said, I also think that this is an opportunity to sort of maybe introduce back into the gene pool some real appreciation for quality audio signals. Now that, and as goes Apple, so goes the industry. And I think that spatial audio is going to be the flavor of the moment, but nothing like digital, like lossless digital audio is never going to be like the flavor of the moment. It's always going to be a thing, just like people appreciate the sound of vinyl because vinyl does a specific kind of thing, like with harmonic distortion and those kinds of things that makes records sound good. Like it can't necessarily be improved upon. It can be like you can have alternate means of good. But a really good piece of vinyl through a really good stereo is always going to produce this satisfying experience. And so I think we have the same opportunity now with digital audio, that maybe for the first time since digital audio really became a thing. And so I'm kind of excited to see if that actually takes place. I mean, I would love to see people get excited and want to learn about how to, even if it's not at the cork sniffing level, but just like, instead of drinking PBRs, they're drinking, craft beer. I would love to see people having that kind of experience, wanting to have that kind of experience with audio, right? So Hugo says that Apple is playing with super sampling and Nyquist rate to give their customers a quote-unquote improved version of the audio track, and probably a bit of supervised machine learning to adjust the slope variables. Yeah. Yes, I wish I knew exactly what it was that they were doing. But I don't think that they'll ever make that secret sauce available to the public. Michael says, makes me think of interpolation in machine learning and photography, where the raw will always have more detail and be able to be fully manipulated, whereas a JPEG is always a JPEG. But when we look at, we look at like the whole Google Pixel like intelligent photography thing. There's no denying that the photos look good, but they are not the same as raw, right? They've been processed to do that. Mark says, well, the newly minted fans of the vinyls, yes. Oh man, I cannot tell you how much I hate the S. Are supposedly the people on the vanguard of becoming a new generation of audiophiles, save for them playing their vinyls on what are essentially close and play plastic toys that Jack White marketed to them. Yeah, I mean, the whole era of Crosley players, you know, whether it's at the kiosk at Whole Foods or in the record section of Barnes and Noble or whatever. I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere. I know that my first record player when I was 8 was some kind of full close and play piece of crap, but I graduated. So wait until these newly minted millennial cork sniffers get to be our age, and then they'll be just as like grouchy and dismissive as we are. Okay, so Tech for Now says, I fell for that when the Sony HTZ-9F soundbar claimed to do Dolby. I assume you mean Atmos. Later required I get the wireless add-on speakers. Yeah, soundbars are a little bit of a different thing. Soundbars are they're kind of like wireless headphones, in the sense that soundbars can fake it, and especially the more expensive ones that do have upward facing speakers and all that kind of thing, but they do mostly use digital signal processing to sort of create a surround field. Now, again, if you don't care that much, then the surround field can be a satisfying experience if you don't care. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times in order to have that real experience, you have to buy the additional stuff. You got to have center. You got to have two fronts in the center and a sub or two subs and two upward facing speakers, and then you've got to have some stuff in the back. And yeah, it can be really, really cool. And I often look at the home theaters that people are building for themselves and think that would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. But at the same time, yeah, it's also a lot of money, which, maybe one of these days I'll do it. Let's see. Excuse me. Oh, Bob, taking us back to the days of Stereo Review, Audiophile, Hi-Fi Review Magazine, Stereophile. I think Stereophile is still around. I don't know if it's in print anymore, if it's only digital. You know who, speaking of Stereophile, Steve Gutenberg is a guy who's been like, God status in like the audiophile world for many, 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 many years. He worked in some of the best hi-fi places in New York City. He's written about hi-fi, reviewed hi-fi, et cetera, et cetera. And he now has his own YouTube channel. And he's fun to watch because he basically just stands in front of a camera in his apartment in New York City and talks about gear and sort of demystifies the fact that, like, you have to spend a ton of money to have the kind of experience that we're talking about here. Not that Steve Gutenberg. or actually it's Guttenberg. I think he pronounces it Guttenberg. But anyway, he's well known for many, many years. And yeah, he's fun. I mean, people who I like to watch in terms of like audio related stuff, I really like Andrew Robinson. Sometimes he's a little more slick in his production than I prefer, but he knows his stuff, and he calls himself a recovering audiophile, which I appreciate. And he talks about the difference between hi-fi and audiophile. And I mean, it's all parsing of words, but still, he's really good. John Darko, who've mentioned a couple of times here on the live streams, as well as Joshua Valor does good headphone stuff. Of course, our friends GameSki and El Jefe Reviews do great headphone stuff, but they're focusing mainly on wireless stuff these days. But I hope they'll come back toward the wired stuff. And I mean, there's a lot of good stuff out there, and I think it could be a really valuable conversation to just talk about how to actually improve your listening experience, to train your ears to be able to hear this stuff, and then to be able to hear it and enjoy it, as opposed to like, I look at spatial audio as like whipped topping. It's not real whipped cream, but it still tastes pretty good, and it just like goes on top of the strawberry shortcake and makes it look pretty. But we're over the hour and a half mark, and my back is still killing me. And I'm gonna be done now. But I do appreciate everybody being here. This has been a fun stream. We've talked about the same thing in a bunch of different ways. So I do appreciate it, everyone. Gonna be back on tomorrow talking about Restream. I think that stream is at 1:00 Central Time, so there'll be a notification. But we're going to talk about Restream with Anya from Restream, and then I'll be back on Friday with Friday Morning Coffee with the Painfully Honest Tech, and in between you get a Painfully Honest podcast episode coming up very soon, tomorrow actually, and of course there'll be more videos coming out throughout the week. At least a couple. So anyway, you guys have a great evening. Once again, my name is Jason, sometimes known as the JTL. This is Painfully Honest Tech. Tech so honest it hurts. Until the next